Hey guys, this is Nathan from RunDreamAchieve.com. Today's video we're going to be discussing how to run a sub 220 marathon. And I think it's a very important topic because there are a lot of athletes that want to do this for this particular event. And even if you're not trying to go under sub 220 for the marathon, you have a particular goal in mind. And I'm hoping that at least sharing some of the things that I did over the years to get to a point where I was able to do this and eventually run 2:19:35 for the marathon will help you. And I know anybody that's trying to run sub 220 for the marathon has to have an enormous amount of work ethic, a certain level of ability for sure, because you need to average at a minimum 5 minutes and 19 seconds per mile, or 3 minutes and 18 seconds per kilometer in order to run under the 2-hour, 28-minute marathon barrier. And over the years, I mean, it took me from 1992 until 2007 to achieve this goal. So I talk a lot in other videos about the importance of stickability and being willing to continue to work hard regardless of setbacks, regardless of letdowns and challenges along the way. I can't stress this enough, because if you don't have that mental tenacity and that drive and focus in order to achieve great goals, it's not going to happen. You cannot be you can't just be interested in running fast in order to run under 2 hours and 20 minutes. You have to have a zeroed in, white hot focus in order to break 2 hours and 20 minutes. And again, what you need to do in order to run under sub 220, or regardless of what time you're going for, whether that's sub 4 hours, sub 2 hours and 30 minutes, sub 5 hours, you have to train at, near, or far below that goal marathon race pace, because you're not going to get marathon race pace to feel any less taxing on the body if you're not spending sufficient time training well below that goal marathon race pace. For me personally, I knew I was trying to run under 2 hours and 22 minutes. I knew I had the capability to possibly break 2 hours and 20 minutes, but I knew to do that, the stars were gonna have to align. I was gonna have to do everything right in training in order to do it. 2:22 flat was in 2007. It was the USA Track and Field Olympic Trials B standard time. And even today in 2021, the Olympic Trials A standard time is 2 hours and 19 minutes flat. Back then, a few years ago in 2007, it was 2 hours and 20 minutes flat was the A standard, and 2 hours and 22 minutes was the B standard time. So as a 2:43 marathoner, that was my debut marathon in New York City. To go from running 6:14 mile pace to 5:25 mile pace, 2:22 flat or faster, there were significant changes. Okay, the things that I did differently was I started running those long runs at a faster pace. And I talk about this in the run courses and training plans I have on RunDreamAchieve.com. And this is how I set up the training for athletes that I mentor and coach online, is we focus on periodization. You do not jump into doing faster, hard, long runs immediately. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way for me or anybody else, any elite athlete, national class athlete, or local athlete. We all start off building the base first. You focus on building base miles first. You know, focus even during that base mileage. You know, I've had a few questions from athletes that say, your training plans are 16 weeks. I want to do a 20-week buildup. What should I do? Run for 4 weeks, literally jogging. Just focus on jogging, doing strides 3 times a week, 5 to 6 100-meter strides, and just build, just to remind your legs of what you're preparing them to do. And then after those 4 weeks of base miles, then you start your 16-week buildup. So, and every 3 weeks in the training programs and the running courses on the website, every 3 weeks, the start of the 4th week is a recovery week. So you're recovering from those hard track sessions we're going to be doing, hill repetitions, road sessions. The way you run this fast for the marathon distance is you get accustomed to pain. And it's much easier said than done. It's much easier for me to say it over a video, but I live this lifestyle where I pretty much live like a monk, because I, like, and probably like yourself, I didn't have a great deal of talent. Okay, there are some athletes out there that can run well under 2 hours and 20 minutes just about, it seems like, every other month. You know, there are athletes out there that can run under 9 minutes for the 2 mile in high school. I didn't have that capability. I ran 9:46 and had a decent amount of talent, but not a great deal of it. So I had to rely on my work ethic, and the same goes for you. Whatever you're lacking in talent, don't second guess yourself, don't doubt yourself. It's just going to take you longer in order to achieve what you're wanting to do. It might take a talented athlete a year to break a 2:20 marathon, or it may take them several years, even somebody with a great deal of talent. I've known athletes that were much faster than I ever was in high school or in college, who never ran under 2 hours and 20 minutes for the marathon. The only thing that I credit really to running 219 was just several years of consistent, non-stop, hard work, as well as smart work, especially in the latter stages of my career when I started getting it right. I started hydrating better during my long runs. That's why I always stress to you guys and gals, make sure that you're practicing drinking during those long runs. Do not sip Dixie cups in a marathon. You need to drink, and you need to ingest calories in that race. I always put 2 gel packs, one on my left side, one on my right side, in my shorts, and I would always take the third gel, which the marathons usually hand out right around mile 17 or 18. And I've talked about this in other videos, but at any given time, we only have about 1,700 to 1,800 calories of carbohydrates stored in our body. So we're burning about 100 calories per mile in the marathon race. And just about, when you run out of glycogen, this is why I always say, when you train at faster paces, when you're doing those VO2 max workouts on the track and you're running closer to your 3K to 5K race pace rather than marathon race pace, you're teaching the body to burn fat. You have much more fat storage than you do carbohydrate storage. So you want to rely on what you have more of, and that's fat storage when you're racing, and conserve those carbohydrates for the latter stages of your race. This is really, I think, was really critical for me when I finished 4th place at the 2007 California International Marathon in Sacramento. And I was up against guys that were much better than I was, okay? I'll tell you, I'd run 50:54 for 10 miles and a 1:07:06 half marathon prior to that morning. But my personal best for the marathon prior to running 2:19:35 was 2 hours, 40 minutes, and 2 seconds. So do not say, just because you're currently at 4 hours, and don't say to yourself that you can't get down to 3 hours and 20 minutes or 3 hours and 10 minutes. Or if you're a 2:30 marathoner, you can't break 2 hours and 20 minutes. You have to continue to stay consistent on your training. Train at paces that are highly aggressive, that are much faster than you're trying to race at in the marathon distance, and that will make marathon race pace feel more sustainable. We talk about the taper phase. Do a 10-day taper rather than a 3-week taper. This will continue, you're going to continue to keep your volume and your intensity up until 10 days out, and then you significantly drop, 50 to 60% of your volume immediately starting that 10th day. And this is how the training plans I have built up, because the training courses and the training plans I have are the exact same workouts, pretty much the same workouts I was doing to run 14:18 for 5K, 4:22 for the mile, 9:27 for the 2 mile, 1:07:06 for the half, and 2:19:35 for the marathon. There are plenty of athletes out there that are much better than I am, okay? So what works for me may not work for you, but the reason why I make these videos is just to give you a snapshot, give you an idea of what a 2:19 marathoner was doing, how we think, what we do. And that's why I always say, always study what middle to long distance runners, successful middle to long distance runners who have already done what you're wanting to do, study them and emulate them. Study what they do, learn how they think. And I'll tell you too, another thing that we definitely do is we get over disappointments quickly. You cannot change a bad race after the fact. You can learn from what you did wrong, but you need to focus on the present, focus on the future, focus on what went right in those past races, what went wrong in those bad races or bad workouts that you did, and figure out what you were doing that was giving you that end result. So I had many disappointments leading up to running 219 for the marathon. Okay, I knew I had the capability to run 222, but there were several times where, you know, I'd run in the 250s, I'd run in the 240s, I'd run in the 230 several times. I ran 232 several times, 236, 240, 250 several times. I even ran in the 3.0s. I think 3:04 was my worst time. But a lot of that was going out far too fast, which is another thing you need to keep in mind. If you're gonna run 220, under 220, or a new personal best for the marathon, focus on taking it, be controlled in the early stages of those miles. You're not gonna win a marathon in the first half marathon. And negative splitting is probably the best option, you know, to run that second half faster than the first half. But if you're highly confident and you've done the work and training, you can go out faster in that first half and then come back. If you're gonna come back a little bit slower, then because you've went out at an aggressive pace the first half, you have that luxury and you have that buffer time to slow down a little bit in the second half. When I ran 219.35, I hit the first half in 107.09, and I knew I had prepared well. I knew I was ready for it. I knew I had tapered correctly. So I just stuck with those Kenyans I was running with, and I'll show you a video, a picture in this video too of that race. And you know, those guys that are in that race, John Kothoga from Kenya, he was a sub 210 marathoner. Laban Moiben of Kenya, who ended up running 2:08 for the marathon. There's a Canadian in the race in the picture with me here in this picture. He ended up running, he was like a low 213 guy. He ended up running 216 to finish ahead of me. So these guys were way better than I was in the marathon distance leading up to it. So forget what other athletes have run. Focus on yourself, okay? If you're wanting to run a sub 220, you have to focus on what you can control in your own workouts and running your race. But if you have prepared well, you've trained aggressively, anaerobically, you focused on your recovery on those easy days, you can that's gonna give you that motivation and confidence to say, hey, I have put in the work. I'm gonna stay with this group for as long as I possibly can, and I'm gonna see how this finish time ends up. And so that's pretty much what I did when I ran 219. I'd done everything correctly in training. I knew the 107.06 half showed potential to break 222, running 50:54 for the 10 mile. So those are some of the things that I was doing leading up to breaking 220. I was in great anaerobic shape. I had done 6 1-mile repetitions at 6,000 feet between 4:44 and 4:46 with a 2-minute rest in between each one of those reps. Prior to breaking 220, I had run 3 times 2 miles on the track, running, I still remember the splits, 9:51, 9:53, and 10:05. And I had a 5-minute rest in between each one of those reps. So those types of paces, obviously way faster than the sub 5-minute mile pace, coupled with running faster paced long runs, alternating a faster paced long run followed the next week by an easy jog recovery long run, and focusing on my nutrition, hydration practices during my long runs, taking in more fluid, taking in more calories during those long runs. That is how I ran 219.35. And the mental tenacity. I just was driven for success and doing the very best that I could and bringing out the best in myself as an athlete. And that's what I want for all of you, okay? If you're trying to run under 4 hours and maybe you're currently a 4 hour and 30-minute marathoner, start visualizing yourself running 3:59. There's no excuse why you cannot do it if you have enough tenacity and drive and focus to do it long enough. It may take you a decade to do it. It may take you 5 years to do it. It may take you a year to do it. It all comes down to how badly you want it and how long are you willing to work to get that goal. The problem is most people that want things, it's easy to want things, okay? But it's a much different task to do something for long periods of time, for several years, when you have setbacks and you have poor races and poor workouts over the years, and you feel like you doubt yourself sometimes, if you're willing to put in the work long enough, you will get to your goal. Okay, whether that's breaking 2 hours and 20 minutes for the marathon, or breaking 3 hours for the marathon, or running under 2 hours and 10 minutes for the marathon. There are athletes out there now that have went under 2 hours. I mean, Eliud Kipchoge of Kenya broke the 2 hour barrier, which is absolutely absurd. I mean, he ran, I think it was around 4:34 per mile in that time trial, and it's just incredible what athletes are doing now. But these are the things you need to be thinking about to run under 2 hours and 20 minutes. Develop your raw leg speed. You have to get accustomed to running well below 5-minute mile pace in order to run 5:19 mile pace or 3:18 per kilometer for 26.2 miles or 42.2 kilometers. So the development of high level, highly aggressive speed, teaching the body to handle very high levels of lactic acid, and eventually getting to a point where you can clear it faster than it's building up, that will help you to sustain that marathon race pace for your entire duration of your race. So I hope this video was helpful for you all. Feel free to leave me a comment below if you have any questions or concerns. Let me know where you're currently at for the marathon and what's been your biggest issue in the race. What has caused you the biggest issue to be able to sustain your goal race pace for the entire distance? I'd really be interested in hearing that. Definitely give this video a like if you would. I'd appreciate it. It helps the channel grow. And hit that bell icon and the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, or if you're an existing viewer and you haven't yet subscribed. Definitely hit that so you can get notified of when I make a new video. And I wish you guys all the best, and I will talk to you all in the next video.